There are creative constraints put on us. There were certain things like the James family didn't want us to get into, like the detailed medical records. I don't find that interesting either. A lot of the things that they wanted us to like be careful and like not show wasn't stuff we were interested in, so it kind of lucked out. This is LeBron's journey and Savannah's journey. What is it like to be a parent who thinks they might be losing their child? That was the focus, not the Bronny's Road to Recovery. That's a totally different film.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by editor Michael Mahaffie, whose work includes the recent documentary series Starting Five on Netflix. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Gordon.
I guess my question, my just to get sort of a sense of how you got here, like what drew you to documentary? How did you get into editing documentaries?
I mean, how I got into documentaries is actually a very easy answer. I was in film school and I knew I wanted to do something. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I saw the movie Harlan County, USA in film school, and I watched that movie and I said, that's what I want to do. Like whatever Barbara Koppel did in that film, whatever she did, like it really like it was a big turning point in my life watching that movie. And so that's how I decided to focus on documentary. And when it came to editing, I always was very uh good at computers for lack of a better term. I spent more time playing on my computer and doing other things. And I got pretty good at editing because I started editing because I was the kid in the neighborhood who did not know how to skateboard well. But I
Hmm.
could hold a camera and cut all the film together, but I was a terrible skateboarder. So that was how I kind of got good at editing. And um, I really enjoy the finding of a story in the documentary footage, and I find that much more rewarding as a documentary filmmaker to be a part of the edit and post process than being out in the field.
I sort of got into VFX by accident. I always had a technical interest in photography and especially as it relates to movie making. There's something magical about the ability to believe something is happening when it isn't. So I went as a live action producer into a company called Bob Abel and Associates. Then I would have to, have a meeting about how do we do this effect that's in this commercial, and I never got the straight answer I was looking for. I have camera knowledge, so it's like, since it's kind of ambiguous, why don't I just grab a camera and we'll try it out. You have to figure out what tells the story and use every trick in the book to solve your problem. I am Rob Legato, and this is my course on visual effects.
Because I love Barbara Koppel's Harlan County, USA. And would you say, because obviously in this series you didn't have, and I don't know, I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to ruin Harlan County, USA
Uh-huh.
anyone, but the after the union meeting moment, the sort of shocking moments. But have you been able to get on doc series or doc shows or movies that have had sort of surprising, revelations or discoveries?
Surprising Revelation Discovery. I think like when I think about what the core of Harlan County, USA, it's a workers' rights struggle
Mhm.
film. I count my father was a union iron worker. I was like long back of always union iron worker, so that it spoke to me in that way. And I think a film that I've worked on that has been about a real struggle that's happening now, because the thing that was really fascinating about Harlan County, USA was it was not a historical doc. It was not,
Mhm.
oh, these miners, like, it wasn't about like old Harlan County, like what happened a long time. They talk a little about it, but it's not the focus of not the focus of the film. It's what's happening right now, this union strike, what these men and these women are doing to push back against the company. I would say the only film that I've really worked on that does something like that, it's changing the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a documentary about four high school athletes in the United States who are actually, sorry, I take that back. It's three high school athletes in America who are trans athletes in high school, and they live in three different states with three very different laws on how they can participate in school sports. And this is, if anyone's paid attention to politics in the last 4 years in America, it's one of the more hot button issues, and it was always sensationalized by places like Fox News and places like blah blah blah. And they would, they still bring up some of our kids who have graduated college at this point.
Yeah.
But we were with these students um, as they were going through their series and tried to give them their stories back, so you could experience what it was like to be trans a trans athlete in high school and like really experience it through their point of view as they're going through their season. And that that I would say that film is the closest I've gotten to like satisfying the need I had in college of like, oh, I want to make a film like this because it was a very important story that was happening right then and there. Like Mac, our main subject, you know, if we didn't film that, like his story might have gotten lost. Like he was forced to wrestle in the women's division because his birth certificate said he was a female. And all he wanted to do was wrestle men, and all he wanted to do was get a scholarship to go play in college. And he was in a predicament. How do you do that? And so we follow him as he, wins the state finals. And when he wins, he hates it. He's just booed. It's probably the word, on my little note card says no one wins because he wins, and he just it's the lowest point of his like arc. And then, eventually later on in the film, he gets a scholarship, gets on a men's team, has goes to a match, doesn't win, but he gets far enough and he actually beats some other men in the tournament, and that for him is way more satisfactory, or way more satisfying, and way more gratifying than any state championship he ever won. But yeah, that I would say Changing the Game was a film that did that for me.
It sounds, I would love to know if it's on any particular streaming services,
Oh,
because,
it's on Hulu.
okay, perfect. Because
Yeah, yeah.
one of the most frustrating things is the amount of misinformation around this
Mhm.
topic and just blatant falsehoods. And
Yeah,
I've never found like a central location or someone who's not sort of misrepresenting things. So
yeah.
yeah, I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, I mean it's probably the film I'm most proud of. It's everything from the craft, how we did it, how it was filmed, the subject matter. I mean, it was nominated for an Emmy. I mean, it's a it's a special film. But yeah,
Yeah. So to jump to this one, because you worked on 10 episodes, which is a huge
yeah.
undertaking. So like one of the things I noticed in this series, which I thought was really interesting, was um the character, like the realization or the discovery of the basketball players' personalities and how they're all
Mhm.
so very specific and very different. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, like, in the cutting room, did you guys sit down and be like, okay, we gotta approach the editing for, say, LeBron James a little bit differently because he really likes Beetlejuice, and let's have some fun with that, or this character over here likes that. Did you play anything up, or did you find that you were cutting things for them differently?
I mean, I would say as a starting point, um, when we started cutting, and it wasn't just me who cut. There were other
Mhm.
editors. I just happened to be quote unquote leading the team.
Yeah.
Um, but we started with basically like a written archetype of who is this person as a man, not as an athlete, as a man. And that's how we came to it first because, the struggle with the show is, the games have already happened. Like it's not like, ooh, who's gonna win, because
Yeah.
everyone knows who's won. but it's how do we do basically a character study on all five of these men and see how the things in their lives affected the outcomes of their play. I mean, I don't watch basketball, so
Hmm.
um, I only knew who LeBron James was. I didn't know who
Yeah.
Jimmy, but I didn't know who any of these
Yeah.
guys were. So we started with archetypes, and that came from our showrunner Peter, and he was like, I'm trying to remember offhand, like LeBron was the GOAT, and we just had like these are the things that are about him, Um, uh, you know, uh, Anthony Edwards was, the immature boy who is going to or who's going to grow up and become like more of a man.
Hmm.
We see that with the birth of his child, and or like Jimmy Butler, like the wild card, like just like, and so that's kind of where we was like our jumping off point. And then as we were cutting, I mean, what I encourage everyone on the team to do, and we're doing this right now is um is to really explore who these men are and really um take that the first impressions you get watching footage, watching who these guys are, and try to basically figure out who these men are in the footage and cut what you find is interesting about these men. And there might be things that are different. We had this with Domantas Sabonis. We had an idea of what we thought he was going to be, but the footage told us something different, which was really great. Um, and so that's how kind of where we started was these was focusing on these men as men first and athletes second. And we had like yeah we had you know a base of where we were trying to go, but we just let the footage continue to speak to us because over the year things changed. Like we didn't know Jimmy Butler's dad was going to pass away. We didn't know that um we didn't know that Jason Tatum was going to win. Like that was a huge that was a huge thing. The whole cut, and I was like, man, we're telling the story of this guy who's being constantly bullied by media that he can never, achieve his goal of winning a championship. If he loses, are we just another bully to him? Because it just ends so sad.
Yeah.
Luckily, he won, but there was like a few sleepless nights of just being like, man, if he are they gonna like cancel the show if like he loses? Because like we're just like setting him up to
I
fail,
was,
and
I
it's
was gonna
just
say in
like,
the very first episode, there's like a whole bit about like, oh, he's done this, but he's never won. Like everyone's like, yeah,
yeah.
but he hasn't won.
We always had that, but once he won, like we always had it, but we always kind of
Yeah,
it was a little iffy about how hard we could go. And then once he won, we were kind of like, okay, we can go as hard as we want. We can just
yeah,
like, not make fun of him, but just like let as much hate come out from the media because, you know, people who watch it, like I saw this, it just like it makes those people sound foolish because everyone knows that he won.
yeah, yeah.
Which is a nice little viewing experience. But yeah,
What, so you talk about like the archetypes, then how much of the structure for the series was in place? Like, right? Because I mean, there's certain
mhm,
things you're gonna know, right? Like the season structure, that type of
yeah.
stuff. But like how much was sort of pre-planned and how much was discovered in the cutting room?
Some of it was pre-planned, some of it. So the things that were pre-planned was we knew that LeBron James was going to watch Bronny James play his first game of college. We knew that was going to happen, and we knew that fans and we knew that people wanted to hear the story from LeBron and Savannah about um, them dealing emotionally with Bronny James' cardiac arrest that had happened. It was,
Mhm.
massive news story in the sports world and even like broke through into like CNN type things. Because it's, um, you know, when, you know, when an 18-year-old who comes from, one of the greatest players of all time suffers cardiac arrest, like it makes news and, people wanted to know more. And we had in interviews with LeBron and Savannah, them being very open, very candid, very vulnerable with our team about um, their emotions through that. And so we knew that that was going to go somewhere, but that we tried it maybe 20 times trying to figure out how this fit. For a lack of a term, it was almost like a cancer in the show because we knew we had to do it, but we tried like sprinkling it out. We tried so many things. And um, I had this idea of, you know, it's never going to be satisfying to just get drip drip of the story. I was like, we need to treat this as its own short film. This is a this is a this is an isolated story um, that needs to work as its own bubble.
Hmm.
And so uh, I think my first cut of it was like 12 minutes, just a 12-minute, and it was basically a cold open to an episode. And I think it ended up being like 9 minutes. Um, and it's just here's here's basically LeBron James Savannah's story, start to finish, of how they went through of their emotions of going through almost losing their son to seeing him play his first college game, and have that one condensed basically short film to start an episode about basically that whole episode's about being a father on Christmas, um, about being a father, and LeBron James kind of leading it off with this very sad story that becomes very uh, very emotionally uplifting when he's seeing his son. And the moment that always gets me is when he says, I didn't care about the 3 point. I don't care about the blocks that he did. All I cared was that he walked off in his own power. Because the
Hmm.
last time it was a stretcher, and like he's very emotional about it. And it was once we did that, it like clicked, and it was like this is how it's got to be. And it's also, I think it was the only way to do it, um because that story deserved just a little extra love, and it needed to have its attention, the viewer's attention, solely focused on it and not thinking about other things. So that was one we knew, but the one that was kind of unplanned was Jimmy's dad dying. That was a story that unfolded as it happened. And when Jimmy's dad passed, again, it was another like kind of heavy scene. I was actually kind of not funny, but I had finished cutting the Bronny scene, and then Peter, our showrunner, said, "Okay, can you start cutting the Jimmy dad scene?" I said, "Man, I'm just like, can I have a break?" Like this is a lot of emotional stuff right now, but um started cutting Jimmy's dad scene, and we broke that up into two parts and kind of like bookended the episodes with it. Um, and one was to just really set up his dad's illness and set up some really like um, basically set up that his dad is sick, but that he's so proud of his son, and like and Jimmy's like thinks we're gonna beat it. Like he's got a lot of confidence, and he's feeling very hopeful. And then by the end, when he learns his father passing, the way we had to cut that scene, or the way I cut that scene was, I mean, whenever I cut a heavy scene like that, I always try to make myself cry, um, which is like not very fun for me, but it's like I try to make myself an emotional wreck. And there was a long take that I hold on Jimmy, where he's basically telling you, and he's looking right at the camera, and he's telling you when he found out about his dad. And whenever I think about like doing a sad scene, I always think about what's the pacing of that? When is there a release? When are you like, and the pacing of that scene, I really felt I never wanted to cut away from Jimmy's face, even though he kind of stumbles here and there, but it's very human. He's telling you, I lost my dad. This is how I found out. Like that's the beat. But having him, I think I hold on it for a long time, and because the viewer doesn't need to be anywhere else.
Hmm.
Like I don't need to see him. Like he's talking about, I was on a plane, but I don't need to see a plane. I don't need to see any of this. All I need to do is see his face as he's like going through, you know, verbalizing his emotions. Don't need to cut anywhere else. And then as soon as he's done telling that story, I can have a release and I can have like, now that that's happened, what is that? Where does he go now? And we can cut to some, we cut to some beautiful imagery of, uh, him with his kids, and he's talking about how his father's legacy is going to be that Jimmy's going to be the best dad he can be, because that's how, and it's very wholesome. It's very good, positive images of what it means to be a man. Really good, just a really nice segue into stuff like that. Um, but I do remember I like cut this whole scene and I sent it to one of our assistants, Vana, and I said, "Hey, can you watch this and like just give me a second opinion before I share it with the whole team?" And she just like texted back. She said, "I need to go call my dad." So I knew it was kind of good.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. He gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
What's fascinating about that and is that you're like I'm wondering, I guess, in terms of the editing suite, like these
Hmm.
people have signed away, like yes, you can just
Hmm.
document me, but you're working with very like you said, we have Bronny James
Hmm.
lapsing, we have the death of the father. Like, what are the discussions about like how to handle this or like to tackle this so that it's respectful, but also, engaging the audience?
Yeah, I mean, there was, there are creative constraints put on us. They didn't want us, there were certain things like the James family didn't want us to get into, like the the detailed medical records, like
Yeah, of course.
all and like I don't find that interesting either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to sit through an episode. So like a lot of the things that people they wanted us to like be careful and like not show, it was like it wasn't stuff we were interested in, so it kind of lucked out. The thing that we really wanted was um, and we didn't interview Bronny about it too because um, I mean, we interviewed about what it was like when his parents came to go see him play basketball because that was permanent. But like, um, this is LeBron's journey and
Mhm.
Savannah's journey, and like what I was focused on was this: what is it like to be a parent who thinks they might be losing their child? Um, so that was the focus. It's not the Bronny's Road to Recovery. That's a totally different film.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's like so we weren't focused on that. And so the creative constraints that were put on us were things that we wouldn't have been interested in anyway. So it didn't really uh, hurt us, but there was definitely some when I was saying we were trying a lot of different things, that was a part of the um, this isn't right. Like this doesn't feel good. And once we settled on, focusing it on basically a short film, that was when everybody got on board it finally clicked. And it was more so because it was such a sensitive topic that the exploring, had a little more, I don't want to say tension, but it was a little more stressful because it was such an important story to tell that I had to we had to do right by it. And same thing with Jimmy's dad. Jimmy, I mean, you probably sense this feeling the show. Jimmy is an open book. So Jimmy was like, he saw it and he was like, yeah, man, that's great. Um, because, and again, I'm not trying to tear his dad down. I'm just trying to just show a beautiful love between a father and son and a son losing his dad. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so that stuff was good. But yeah, the creative constraints were not, again, were things like we things we weren't interested in, so it
Yeah.
wasn't that bad.
To take it to a little more lighter of a note.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like documentaries, you got tons and tons of footage. So, and like I said, these guys have really interesting personalities. I can't remember which one it was, but he goes as an emo to his photo
That's
day.
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Um, was there something that you really enjoyed or liked, but that you had to cut out? Not because it wasn't good, but just it didn't fit the story?
Huh. There, hmm, things that we cut out. Someone else might have a better answer for this, but I would say for me, the thing that we had to cut out, um, it wasn't so much having to cut out, it was
Mhm.
more of a tweak we had to make for clearance reasons. So that emo Jimmy scene,
Yeah.
the whole time, like the whole time that scene was cut, and that was one of the first things I cut, was I cut it to a Jimmy Eat World song. Jimmy Eat World, very famous emo
Yeah.
band. He's emo Jimmy. Like it just plays itself. And we were using the middle and it just cut so well. And it just worked really well. And it was very funny and it just worked. And then about 2 weeks before Picture Lock, we can't use that song. And so we had to reimagine. Now, luckily, Jimmy was very good friends with Fall Out Boy, and so Fall Out Boy we were able to work something out to get a
Yeah.
song from them, but um, we had to recut that,
Oh,
which works, but it's like not the same. So like, there's a part of me that like when I watch that, I'm just like I die a little inside because I'm like, oh man, no one's gonna see like the Jimmy Eat World version that was like from day one to like 2 weeks before picture lock. So that was a hard thing to lose, just like stylistically. But there were a lot of scenes um, that we had that were really good that we had cut out. And during the picture lock process that me and the showrunner did, he was actually sitting on this couch the whole like for 2 months,
mhm.
all 10 episodes. We like there would be times where we like would need a verite break and it would be like, oh, I have this scene that I think could be good. And that has just been like sitting around. We don't know where it goes. And so we kind of found homes for uh a lot of our babies that we had killed.
Yeah.
Like we found little homes for them. One that comes to mind is in one of the second to last episodes was Deuce showing off his jungle gym and just being a ham for the camera. Like I just
Mhm.
love that scene. It's just a fun kid, talking to the camera, showing off, and his dad's like, "Hey, you want to come?" He's like, "Not yet." So it's just very cute, but didn't have a home for it. Found a
Yeah.
home, but yeah, the only thing that really broke my heart was Jimmy World.
I do think that scene, the part that made me laugh so hard, because like before I was like, okay, this is funny, and then it's when his like teammates are trying to get that three-shot photo of themselves, and one of them just can't stop laughing, and he's just like,
Yeah, that's
"You
hella
have a
funny.
lip ring. It's the lip ring that's
Yeah,
doing."
yeah. Yeah, that's that again, and that comes up. It's just like that like candid, unpolished version
Mhm.
of these guys, like that's like really what we tried to lean into, and like any of all those little moments were just like we're just gold for us because we can see these guys dunking a ball, we can see
Yeah,
these guys, you know, just being incredible athletes with incredible bodies, and just like so that's very easy to do. But these like little human moments where they're kind of like sometimes acting like little kids,
yeah,
they're goofing off. They're just like, um, that's what that's what draws me to the show are moments
yeah.
like that.
I have one last question for you.
Oh,
What
yeah.
would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Okay. Guilty pleasure. I mean, my guilty pleasure show, man, I'm gonna get flamed for this. My guilty pleasure show is The Bachelor.
Oh yeah.
My guilty pleasure show is The Bachelor because I think of it like a sport.
Yeah.
almost. And there's a lot of people online who also look at it like a sport, not like drafting who you think's gonna win, but just like the way people it's a game to play.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
no one's finding love. It's like how do you become like an influencer online? Like how do you spin this off into some sort of social media career? And how do you work the camera and the producers to make it so that, it's fascinating to watch in that way.
Yeah.
Um, and but I actually haven't watched that in a while. Like I would say maybe not but if I'm thinking about a guilty pleasure movie, the one that I watch on like repeat um is oh man. I guess it's not I guess it's like kind of artsy fartsy, but my guilty pleasure movie is definitely Tampopo Ramen
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
just Tampopo. That's like um that is just something that just uh I guess I wouldn't be guilty. It's not like definitely
Yeah.
a pleasureful film. Um, but yeah, no really guilty pleasure movies. But yeah, The Bachelor is definitely like my trash TV. And I'm not saying it's trash TV. It's just like it's it's um it's my guilty pleasure show, and everyone's got some. That's a good question.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Oh, thanks, Gordon.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.